Hi guys, welcome back to 12 Days of Christmas. Today is day 9. We had a little bit of a bump in the road yesterday. I don't know if you guys remember, that was a little bit crazy. If you guys missed it, I'll leave a card up here to check it out. We've been going on a steady slope upwards, and then like a little roller coaster we decided to eating. So let's hope that today is a little bit better than that craziness yesterday.
So while you open this, all the ones that were from Americas and Melbourne are done. These ones I just bought in Perth.
Okay. Should I be worried then?
Maybe.
Ooh. Ooh, I like it. This looks modern. Ooh, 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 ooh. A sleazy rock and roll vampire fable. On my watch list. I did not know it was a vampire film. Desmond Flicks, I don't know if you guys know him, he recommended this to me, but I did not know it was a vampire flick. I just put it down. I looked up some quick reviews and just saw a couple of like the headlines saying how great it was. So I actually really want to watch this. Dean, I did not know. You saw this in JB Hi-Fi? How did you know? You just picked it up, you have no idea. Just lucked out there. Yeah, I'm so glad. I'm actually so happy about this. This was on my list. I was gonna review this anyway, so.
There you go.
That's awesome. Yay! Yay! I can't believe it. Desi Donoghue lives life hard. A once-and-done-man artist known for her macabre album cover designs and nightmarish paintings, she complements her work with heavy drugs and long booze-fueled nights in the streets of Los Angeles. Struggling through her seemingly endless creative rut, and with the bills piling up, the only person in her corner is quasi-boyfriend Clive, who's clearly more into her than she is to him. But something's gotta give, and thanks to Desi's drug dealer, it does in the form of an intense new drug called Bliss. Naturally, Desi jumps at the opportunity to sample it, and that's when everything changes. I'm gonna leave it there because I feel like this is a really long blurb, and sometimes these blurbs tell the actual whole story instead of just, you know, telling a one sentence. I guess I'm looking for a tagline or like a synopsis, but this is just like insane how long this is. I don't want to know every little aspect in detail, especially if it's a vampire film that obviously must have like a different kind of twist to it. So I'm really excited to check this one out. Good pick, Dean. Good pick. I don't know how you did this. Oh, Lord, I have so many thoughts about that film. Okay, wow. That was a very intense experience. But I would definitely say, like, where to start. I guess let's talk about what the film is about. The blurb really gives a lot of the film away, but it's hard to explain because it's one of those films that's not about the actual point, it's about the journey. So it's about her dealing with the change and yeah, coming to terms with it, which a lot of vampire films are. I would definitely say that it's not really heavy on the vampire, it's just kind of like implied, but it's about the journey to get there. So spoiler alert, it's about a vampire. It says it on the cover though. So I'm gonna not go into too much detail about aspects, but I'm going to talk about things that happen in the film that I'm not a fan of and things I am a fan of while keeping vague. I'm good at this. This is what I'm good at. This is the one thing I'm good at. Bliss is an interesting film. It starts off with a warning for anyone who has epilepsy, which I think is a very good tell to the stylization of this film. Lots of lights, flashing, gritty scenes, you know, late night bars. It's a very interesting film in the way that it's dark, but it's also got a lot of really like neon colors that are flashing, and it's just really interesting because it reminds me so much of the movie Climax. I actually really love Climax, and I know there's two types of people in this world, people who love Climax and people who don't, but this film really does remind me of what they did in Climax, but Climax actually has quite a similar color stylization with like swinging lights, and you know, it's not as intense as the coloring in Climax, but it's definitely like halfway there. the interesting thing is the film itself is a lot like Climax. So it's really extreme. It's an R-rated film, but it's a very extreme film, and it really is trying to shock the audience and take it to the next level. Lots of blood, lots of gore, lots of drugs. It's very intense. It's kind of a mix of Climax, and if you guys have seen the vampire film from 1995 called Habit, which is about a similar situation, someone who's addicted to drugs, and like, it's like vampirism as a metaphor for drug addiction, which is what this film is really about. And yeah, the journey of that. So I'd say you'd mix those together, but this hasn't got quite, even though this film is really extreme and some of the situations in it are very extreme, it's not like Climax where I think I reviewed Climax. I'm gonna leave that up there because that's something else. That's something else completely different. But it definitely tries to get there in its own way. My favorite thing about this film is Desi, who is played by Dora Madison. She is amazing in this film because it's such a hard-hitting performance. I feel like I've been saying a lot, like, the lead has to carry the film through for a lot of these ones, but I think it's because it's so focused on the main character for a lot of these films that I've been watching for this 12 Days of Christmas. It really kind of isolates that character, and they really have to pull the story through. That happened with Christmas Evil, and yeah, a few other ones that are just really focused on that character's expression to kind of pull the film through instead of just the storyline and then being like a passenger on it. This film, it doesn't just rely on her, she just carries it. The performance by her is amazing, and because she's getting so aggressive from what's happening to her, you're kind of feeling her frustration, while at the same time you know how she's reacting is completely unacceptable behavior, to say the least. So it's really interesting in that regard. I really loved her in this. I think she was amazing, and great casting, and yeah, just top-notch performance. I think that the film had a great idea. Would I say that the film has been done before? Yes. But that's not a problem. People can remake ideas and put a little twist on it. The whole painting aspect, I feel like, you know, Velvet Buzzsaw would never, Devil's Candy, you know, they did it, and it was amazing. So I like that aspect, like, that's pulled into it. But I did feel it was quite predictable with what was happening with the artwork. You guys will see when you watch it. I felt like it was really obvious. The last scene was meant to be a reveal, and I felt like it was very obvious what was gonna happen. And I feel like this film used a lot of stylization to show these manic episodes, and I'll get into like the technical aspects in a minute, but I felt like that it was just really big padding for the film, where there's not much that actually happened. It was just like padded out by these like intense stylized situations, manic episodes, and it was trying to get more and more extreme. And I felt like sometimes you can cut off a film at a certain point, and I'm sure you guys have watched a lot of films that you felt like, okay, this is going to be the end, and then there's another scene, this is going to be the end. And I felt like this film would have been more, would have made more of an impact if they cut it to a certain point instead of try to, like, I don't know, bring more horror and bring more horror. Sometimes it's better left up to the imagination, and I felt like, yeah, it was just a little bit overkill. And I really loved the direction at the start of the film, the performance, the slow descent. I thought was a magical thing. And at the start of watching this film, I'm like, this is gonna be in my top 10 of 2019. Like, I had a feel, and I was like, this is great. I love her performance. I love where this film is going. Absolutely here for it. I don't care if it's a simple story that's been done before. I'm totally here for this. I'm not a huge vampire film, but I really like the idea of this film. But then towards the end, it just got predictable, and it just felt like we were just on a hamster wheel going round and round. And I get that's why some of these films are really good, these extreme horror films. And this is an extreme horror film. It's good because you feel so helpless and like you can't do anything to change your situation, and that can work for some films. But for this film, because it was so predictable, I felt like I was just going through the motions. Technical wise, for these manic episodes, there was a few stylization choices that are just, this is really nitpicky that I don't like. Or something that isn't in the manic episodes is they had a lot of conversations over the phone that strung the scenes of the films together, and these were shown as voiceovers. So like if she was driving, like it was a call that would have happened prior to her driving, and it was shown over the top, or you know, the voiceover was over the top of that footage. And I felt like it was I don't want to say lazy because that's really rude, but I feel like it just didn't work really well, and it made the film look a little bit cheaper, and the production value, like, it cheapened it down, where it would have just been better if they did the phone call or even cut out that part all entirely, because it wasn't as much useful information as you thought. If she's calling to go somewhere, just have her show up, you know? And I felt like those little scenes with the voiceover, it just really takes me out, and I just think about the actors like talking into a microphone, and this is just, as I said, nitpicking. Also, there was some with the montages of like the manic episodes and her like having like trip outs, there was a few shots that I was not a fan of. I liked how they did like the whole tilt. As I said, there's like a whole lot of like tilting with the camera, slow kind of like descent tilting or like movement with like a large frame. Sorry, I don't know the technical term for that, but that was done a lot in climax too. So I like that. One thing I didn't like was there was mirror shots that were like spliced into that, and I felt like that cheapened it, and it had like, there was a horror moment in it. I'm not going to give it away, but it's like a typical like horror trope situation, and I felt like it was just unnecessary, and it cheapened the production of the film. The film is meant to be art itself, and when it like tries to cater to a dum-dum audience, I feel like that cheapens the idea of it. I just felt like with the manic episodes, there was a lot of moments that were spliced in there just to kind of hype up the horror instead of letting it just play out, and knowing the situation was disturbing enough without having to add some like stylized hype to it. I hope this makes sense. But yeah, I had a lot of feelings about this film. I started off thinking, man, this is gonna be awesome. I really love her character. There's no one like her that I've seen in a horror movie recently. Like, she has such depth to her. She's such an original personality for a horror movie, and I was so into it. And then I just felt like it became like so many other horror movies I've seen, and it just didn't have that shine that it originally started off with. So I was gonna give it, like, when I started watching it, I'm like, well, this is definitely gonna be like an 8 or a 7, but towards the end I definitely have to go to a 6. I still highly recommend you guys checking out Bliss. Sorry, I keep pointing to it. I highly recommend you guys checking out Bliss. I don't think it was going to be a waste of your time at all. If you liked Climax, you'll probably really like this film as well. But that's just my opinions, and I'm being very nitpicky, I know, but only because I feel really strongly about this film. I really like the idea of it, and it is a Joe Bigos, I hope I'm saying your last name right, probably not Bigos, film, and I really look forward to seeing what else he comes up with. I know he's done about like 5 other films. I look forward to looking at them, and then also just keeping tuned in to what he has next. I hope you guys enjoyed today's 12 Days of Christmas. I had a lot of thoughts on this one. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for another 12 Days of Christmas, guys. We're almost at the end. I can't believe it. If you missed yesterday's, here it is. And here's some other stuff I've been working on. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.